So I was just reading over his form real quick. Seems you want to have more reliable obedience training.
Mhm.
Okay. And then some like minor behavior like chewing on rugs and stuff.
Yeah, and, like,
Okay.
chewing on people as well.
Gotcha. And how big are we expecting Noki to get?
Um, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna become, like, the maximum male Corgi size, which is 30 pound or
Mhm.
31 pounds. He's pretty small, so I feel like maybe, like, 25, if I had to guess. I don't really know.
Sure. And then you weren't sure if you wanted to do like a board and train or a daycare and train. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm leaning towards board and train, but I'm not 100% sure.
Gotcha. So what we'll do is I'll just kind of get more information and stuff, and I'll kind of give you the pros and cons of the programs.
Okay.
Um, so is there anything like for Noki, like if you could have the training that you wanted, okay, what would your life look like with Noki? Like, would you go to restaurants with him? Would you, walk him and go to like forest preserves or
Yeah, I would definitely take him on like daily walks and then maybe like some longer walks, if possible. Um, I do want him to be kind of more relaxed during the day. Like my dogs at home in California, they kind of will just like follow my parents around and just like lay around and do whatever while they're working or making dinner or something like that. And take him to the dog park. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just like the normal stuff.
okay. Um, how old are the dogs in you said California?
Yeah, so I have a golden retriever that is 6 years old, and then a Maltese Papillon that is 10 years old.
Gotcha. Um, have were they always kind of just chill, or has that something that's happened over the years?
The Maltese Papillon has always been pretty calm. I mean, he's very playful and like energetic, but he'll just kind of relax during the day. The Golden Retriever is definitely more spazzy. He wants attention all the time. But he's definitely gotten better throughout the years. He was way more spazzy before, but he's gotten better with age.
Gotcha. Okay. Because a lot of the stuff you're seeing now is, of course, is just you have a young puppy, and then he's getting close to 6 months, so he's probably teething or losing teeth and getting his adult teeth in, which is a big cause for like chewing around this
Yeah.
age. So that part of that would be stopping or correcting him for chewing on things he shouldn't, but then giving him something in exchange because he needs it,
Hmm.
right? So if he was just being destructive for the sake of being destructive, we just stop and correct the behavior. But at a puppy his age, it's corrected so he learns like, okay, I can't chew on that. But then we give him something in exchange, like here, you can chew on this.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I'm assuming you did some research on how we train, the approach that we use.
Hmm.
Okay, so because your puppy's older, so you have a couple of options,
Okay.
and I'll kind of give you those options and what the limitations are with each method. So for puppies under 6 months, we do have like the puppy board and train,
Mhm.
and that's done with food, positive reinforcement, and we'll use like gentle leader. The problem with that is, and that's more so if it's like a really young puppy, like if we have a 2 to 3 month old puppy, that's where that really kind of comes into play because they're so young. But the problem you'll have is translating that or transferring that to outside. If he's not interested in the food or if whatever's going on is more stimulating or more exciting than what you have to offer, he's not going to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where tools like the prong collar and e-collar come into play because that helps us build more reliable and functional obedience no matter what the environment is, right? So if you're at the dog park and you need them to return to you, or if like you let him off leash to run around at Oz Park or something, like he's not going to run off, he's going to stay with you and all that. Those tools allow us to achieve those kinds of level of training, even at a puppy as young as 5 months. Okay, because at 6 months is typically when we start a puppy on the big boy, big girl tools, because that's when we can start teaching them at an adult level. Okay,
Yeah.
and a lot of times what can happen with puppies is when there is no consequence or aversive, they tend to be more bratty. So like if Gnocchi did something that one of my dogs, for example, like disagreed with, and they're like, "No, you're not going to do that here," they would just nip them or bite them.
Mhm.
Okay, and they're not aggressive, but that's how they communicate to their puppies and to each other, like, "Hey, I don't want you to do that."
Yeah.
Right. So if he's not receiving that kind of feedback or communication for things that we don't want, like he may potentially become more destructive, or start to develop more issues because no one's ever told him like no in a
Mhm.
formal fashion that he would understand and respect. Okay, so with the puppy board and train using positive reinforcement,
Wait, sorry, I'm gonna grab him because he's chewing on something. Hold on.
that's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
He's chewing on our
Yeah,
table.
not even 2 minutes and he's already getting in trouble.
Yeah.
So with the positive reinforcement, we can train them to do the sit, stay down, come, all that stuff, but it would most likely not be applicable in a more distracting, realistic situation, just because of if the reward of what he's doing is greater than the reward that you have, he's going to opt for that.
Yeah.
Okay. The next step up would be like a prong collar. The only problem with the prong collar is that when you remove the leash, you no longer have means of control. So he's gonna know, like, oh, sure, like I'm playing with my friends, and when you have the leash on, I know I have to listen, but now the leash is off. I don't have to listen, right? So the e-collar allows us to get control on or off leash from the get-go. So like if he's playing with his dog friends and you call him and he's like, no, I don't want to do it, you can make him respond.
Mhm.
Okay, you can make him return using that tool without needing a leash.
Yeah.
In terms of like how close we can get him to off leash reliability, just depends on length of time. How long do we have them for? With puppies under 6 months, we typically recommend that people do at least 3 weeks if you're doing either a daycare or board and train type program, because we use 1 week to introduce the dog to pressure using a prong collar.
Mhm.
And then the next 2 weeks we can layer in e-collar. Okay.
Okay.
Because if we just jump straight into the e-collar because he's such a young pup, it can be too much pressure for them sometimes. So we have to like ease them into it. And so we have currently 2 puppies that are under 6 months doing board and trains. And one is doing 4 week, one is doing 3 week. And right now they're both in the prong collar phase. Okay. So within a week, about 5 more days, they're going to then transition to e-collar. Then we start doing more advanced off leash stuff with them. Okay.
Okay.
Now, are you familiar with what an e-collar is or the technology?
Not really, no.
Okay. So people tend to call it a shock collar.
Mhm.
Okay. You're not electrocuting your dog. It's not electricity running through your dog's body. It's not the electric chair. It's a miniaturized TENS unit. Okay. Have you ever been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor?
Yeah.
Have you ever had STEM,
No, I don't think so.
the machine that moves your muscles?
Mm-mm.
No. So at either a chiropractic office or if they're a physical therapist, they have this machine called a TENS unit, TENS. And it's got these little circles with wires, and they put them like on your arm or on your back, and they turn the machine on, and it moves the muscles. Okay,
Okay.
so it's a muscle stimulator. If you ever seen like a YouTube video where they recreate labor contraction pains in men, that's the same technology, but labor contractions are obviously uncomfortable, so they're very high up on that intensity to
Yeah.
recreate that in men. Um, It's also, if you go to Walgreens or CVS, if you go in the back section, you'll see the TENS units, and it'll say like back pain management or something. And it looks like a little bone, and you just put it on your back, and then again moves those muscles to help either relax the muscles or relieve back pain. Okay. So it's not, again, electricity. It's electric, but not electricity, is how I explain it. So the collar, there's 2 probes that make contact with the dog's neck, and it stimulates the muscles. Okay. Every dog's number is different. Every puppy's number is different. I can't tell you like, oh yeah, your dog would only be like on 10 or something like that. Like we wouldn't know that till we actually started training the dog.
Yeah.
And people think like, oh, it's a puppy, it's going to be super low. You'd be surprised. Sometimes it's much higher because people are going by their personality type or they're going by the size of their dog. When it comes down to just the dog's resiliency or the way they perceive the collar, if they're very sensitive, then yes, the collar level would be lower. If they're very resilient, the level is going to be higher. But that's what makes the tool so versatile is I can work with any dog, you know, whether they're super stubborn or they're very soft and sensitive. If they're very sensitive, I'm just lower. If they're more stubborn, then I'm just higher, right? But I can still achieve the results that I'm looking for because I have a means of dialing it in to that specific dog. Okay. So when it comes to what we would teach, there's 6 formal commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, and heel. All these commands are meant to be functional. These commands are meant for you to do things with your dog. Go to a restaurant, go to a forest preserve and have your dog off leash, go to the dog park, go to, you know, for a walk without your dog pulling and all that stuff. These commands are meant to be functional. And I think people think that these commands are now like, they're like tricks that you teach your dog. And if they sit, like it's cute and you give them a treat, which sure, but it's actually meant to be functional. If I said sit, it means sit and don't move until I give you permission, right? If I take my dog to my friend's house and I tell my dog to lay down and I don't give them permission to move for 2 to 3 hours, then they don't move for 2 to 3 hours. Like it's meant to be used. So with either program, we have to do transfer lessons. It's not like you drop your dog off and then you pick up a finished product and you leave and they're fine. You have to, of course, follow through and reinforce the training and also apply it. Okay. Now, some pros to the daycare and train or the board and train is that we can get done what could take you 6 weeks in 2 weeks. Okay. Or in 9 weeks, we can get that done in 3 weeks. So 3 weeks of your time is 1 week of our time, essentially. And we also teach everything within a shorter time frame because, you know, we train dogs for a living. So in a 6-week program, you might only learn 2 to 3 behaviors to teach your dog. But in a 2-week program, we would teach all 6. Okay. The longer the program, the closer we can get your dog or puppy to off-leash reliability. Okay. Now, every command but the recall or the come when called is very easy to transfer. It's the recall that takes the longest. Okay. So you're still going to have some level of work to do. It's just the longer we have them, the less you'll have to do afterwards. Okay. So the reason why the recall takes the longest is because he's getting frustrated there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason why recall takes the longest is because we can only work your dog in so many situations, right? We have our facility. We do make, you know, trips out to Horner Park and stuff, weather pending, and we practice so that we can make the command as functional for you as possible by the time you get your dog back. But if you take your dog to a forest preserve that he's never been before, you're going to have to do some work there because he's never been there before. Okay. But all the work is done. You just need to make sure that you practice it so he transfers it to you. So the con is all the training that's done is tied to us. Okay. Because we've done everything. So like if I work with the couple and like the girlfriend does all the work and the husband does or the boyfriend does a little bit of work, the dog will listen more so to the girlfriend than the boyfriend, right? Same thing here is since we did all the training and everything, Gnocchi would listen to us, which is why we have the transfer lessons, because then we have to teach you and then you have to practice it so that he goes, oh, you know, now mom is kind of like, you know, over at Jesse's. Now there's rules and now there's things that I have to do and it's not an option anymore. Okay. Another drawback to a board and train or daycare and train is that let's say for whatever reason Gnocchi happens to be a more resilient dog and his number is higher, so our collar goes to 127 in increments of 1, so 1 2 3 4 5 all the way to 127, and like let's say his number is 80, for example. Okay, that's an extreme. and he's not yelping or anything, but he needs 80 in order to listen, right? Because you're logical and you have emotional attachment stuff, and you don't want to hurt your dog or anything, you're gonna go, man, 80 out of 127, that's like 2/3 of the power, right?
Mhm.
Is people tend to have like psychological kind of barriers. And then when we come back and they're like, oh yeah, we're having trouble, the dog's not listening, almost always it's because they're not going high enough on the collar. Okay,
Okay. Oh,
because
so it's like you keep the collar afterwards, or how does?
right. So then one of the most common questions we get is, how when does the collar go away? Right? Uh, do you drive?
Not here, no.
But you know how to drive.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever driven on the expressway?
Yes.
Did you go the speed limit?
Above the speed limit.
Yeah. So most people do not go the speed limit, right?
Mhm.
What happens when you see a squad car?
Slow down.
Slow down. So that's called opportunistic behavior. All animals do it. Okay. So even as humans, we know better, right? We are aware, like, oh, 70, I'm not supposed to go above 70, so on and so forth. Is think of the collar as a cop on a collar. Okay. When it's present, or it's present when you need it. If you're gonna walk Gnocchi, if you're gonna go to a restaurant with him, if you're gonna go to a friend's house, if he's gonna be off leash at the park or something, it's present, right? Now, if you've done your homework and followed through with the training, you're not always using it. It's just there just in case, right?
Mhm.
Because he's a dog. If it's not present, he's gonna go, oh, that cop is not here, so I know I can get away with more things, right?
Mhm.
And then you have no means of reinforcing the command, right?
Yeah.
So if there's no cops to reinforce the speed limit, people speed, right? But if people know there's a squad car, they know if there's a red light camera or whatever, all of a sudden people are obeying the law, right?
Mhm.
So it's nothing good or bad. It's not like anything to do with our training methods or our skills as trainers. It's simply just that's just the reality of things. Is all animals are opportunistic. So if he can get away with stuff, he's gonna try it.
Yeah.
Okay. And regardless of any method that you use, if you use food only, it's the same thing. You'll always have to use food. The only problem is if there's something more rewarding, he's not going to care about the food, right? With the e-collar on or off leash, if he decides not to do something, I can make him listen.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, other questions?
Um, so I mean, what's your recommendation versus like for board and train versus just daycare and train? Like, do you feel
So,
like daycare and training is as effective?
so the daycare and train, obviously, like if like you live nearby and it's not a hassle to like drop them off in the morning and pick them up in the evening,
Mhm.
is fine. Other than you get less follow up. Okay.
Yeah.
With the board and train, we were able to spend more time with him. We can because we have him, all day and night.
Mhm.
That we're able to do more training. Plus, he's also there on the weekend, so you essentially get like another, 2 days of added reinforcement and training, and you also get more follow up with a board and train. So it comes down to the con of a board and train is, well, you'll have to leave your puppy with us for X period of time, right? So then if you miss your puppy, that's where the drawback would be. But if it's like, no, I'd like to have my puppy at the end of the day or whatever, then the pro of a daycare and train is that you get them back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's really personal preference. And when people do board and trains, like I don't if they're like, hey, can I come see my dog, tomorrow? Like I don't care. You can come and visit him, make sure he's doing okay and all that stuff. Play with them for a little bit, um, in case you miss him. But with regards to the board train to a daycare train, there's obviously more work done with the puppy.
Yeah.
Whereas the daycare train, if you drop them off like at 10 o'clock and you pick them up at 5 o'clock, that only leaves us a 7 hour window to like try to get stuff done.
Yeah.
You know. So whereas with the board and train, we have all day and morning and night to make sure that we get all the training in, and we train all day.
Okay.
As long as he does a lot of duration work. He does his training sessions with all the trainers. He also gets play with the dogs. He'll get treadmill time to get structured exercise. It's a pretty fulfilling day.
Okay. And so if if I were to only get him, so if I weren't to do it like sooner, what if I waited until he was 6 months? Would that change anything?
I mean, you could end up, how do you say, you wouldn't have to necessarily do the introductory like week of Prong Collar, right? And just jump into a 2-week program. But every dog is different. Like, you could drop him off at 6 months and then it's like, oh, like he's too sensitive and we still have to ease him into it either way. Like, I don't know. But definitely for puppies under 6 months, we do that extra week with Prong first and then at least 2 weeks of e-collar so we don't have to rush it.
Yeah.
With an older dog at a year and a half, like if somebody wants to like do a 1 week, it's not that big of a deal because it's an adult dog. They already know how to handle stress. But for puppies, it's a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah. Do you think that it's more effective to have the puppy when they're younger? Like, would it be better to start them sooner, or would it be better to just wait until he's 6 months?
Mm, you can wait till he's 6 months. Like we have a puppy right now, she's 4 months and she's doing 4 weeks with us and she's doing Prong to e-collar.
Okay.
We were going to take her at 4.5 months, but something happened. So she had to bring her in earlier. And we said it's fine because the method that we're using is meant for, it's like lifelong training.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's like our clients bring us their dogs, we train them, we give them back, we transfer everything. And that's for the life of the dog. It's not like you do one program and then you leave, then you got to do another program,
Yeah.
It just comes down to when you bring your dog back, let's say it is at 6 months and it's just like, well, how close to 100% do you want your dog to be when you get them back is really the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I just had one. Oh yeah. So would that like general training that we're discussing, would that help with like when he's on walks and if he like sees another person coming, he'll like try to jump on them? Like, would that help with that?
Yeah. So that would be addressed with the heel command.
Okay.
So heel means walk at my side, walk with me, stay with me, and sit when I stop, right? No pulling, your dog's right shoulder glued to your left leg. Okay, that's what the heel command is. So if he's under command and he's passing by people, like he's focused on you, that he's not worried about the people in passing.
Yeah.
Right? But if left like on his, like let's say you were walking him and it was just like a leisurely stroll, he's not under any command, and he like someone said, "Oh my God, your puppy's so cute," like he would go to him, right? Because he's not under command.
Yeah.
So obedience is meant to like prevent things. It's meant to have control in distracting environments. So like let's say you're walking through the park and there's a lot of people walking by, he would just run up to everybody, but he's not under any command. The moment you cue the command, you'd be walking to that same environment, but he would be focused on you and forgetting about everything else. Okay. So it's not like he learns to walk and do whatever he wants, but ignore certain things. It's either he's working or he's not working.
Yeah.
Right. He's on the clock or he's off the clock. Now you can always correct things. Like let's say, he's not under command and, you run into a friend of yours and he comes running to him like, oh, hi. And he's not under command and he tries to jump. You would simply just correct that to teach him, like, we don't jump on people.
Okay.
So there's a means of addressing it. It's just if he's doing obedient stuff, since he's under control, we don't see that behavior. But if he's not on the clock, then we have to teach him not to do the behavior, even though he's not under command.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
Is there like a level of socialization that he'll be having?
Yeah. Okay. If he's a social pup, he'll get to play with the other puppies and dogs that we have here.
Okay.
So the day, whether daycare or board and train is split up between, training, of course, duration work where we have him like lay down and not move for a couple of hours, treadmill time, play sessions with other puppies or other dogs that we have at the facility, and rest time in the kennel so that he can decompress and it's not constant like activity throughout the day, he needs rest breaks.
Mhm.
Especially with puppies, like you can't press them like an adult. They need more time to decompress and rest and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yes, socialization would be a part of the program.
Okay. And then so logistically, is there like a certain day of the week that you like start board and trains or just like whenever?
Just whenever. Ideally, Monday through Friday because that's when we have the most staff. Saturdays and Sundays tend to be slower, but that's when we do. How do you say? If since it's slower on the weekends, they're usually able to do more. But when it comes to like introducing the dog to facility and stuff, during the week is best because that's when we're at our busiest. We have dogs there, we have all our handlers are there, um, and then he's getting trained with multiple people. But technically, any day doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Now, if you're doing daycare and train, definitely Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Okay, definitely Monday through Friday. If you're doing a board and train, then it really doesn't matter
Yeah.
when you can drop off.
Okay. Um, I mean, right now he's like digging. Would that help? Like anything help him with like digging, like stuff like that?
Are you digging in the yard?
No, like on our rug.
Oh, that you would just correct.
Okay. I
Right?
don't, yeah.
Telling him to sit wouldn't like he'll sit momentarily, but when he's not sitting, he's gonna just dig at the rug again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So um, we most likely wouldn't see that behavior, but it doesn't mean that we cannot give you the information to correct it. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
Okay. So like correcting stuff that you don't want, nipping, chewing, biting, digging, all that stuff, that's simple because it's just don't do that.
Yeah.
It's the obedience stuff that takes time because it's unnatural to a dog. They're not meant to like sit and stay and down and come and all that stuff. Those are skills that we train them to do.
Mhm.
But stopping things is much easier.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I think that's all the questions that I have.
Okay. So in regards to the collars that he would need, if you did the board and train and you did food only, okay, we use gentle leader. Just remember that the ceiling for food only is very low, and the gentle leader is not a correctional tool, and it's going to require a bit more like technical skill. Okay.
Yeah.
Prong collar is better because it's better than the gentle leader because it's a correctional, tool, but you're going to be limited to only having control when he's on leash. And then e-collar would give you on and off leash control. Okay. So
Okay.
because he's a puppy, you have those options, but just be aware of those limitations. Okay. For the collar that he would need, since he's a smaller guy, he just needs the collar that's meant for 35-pound dogs and under. That one runs about 237-ish with tax. It's a half-mile range, fully waterproof system, both the transmitter and the receiver. They last for years. I've had mine for 8 years. The most common issue we see is that the battery does die. It's a rechargeable lithium battery, much like your cell phone. So like after 3 years, the battery might give out where it won't hold a charge. You can go to the website or you can call up the company and they'll either have you send in the collar and they'll replace the battery, or you can purchase one for like 20 bucks or whatever on their website and replace it yourself. But that's the most common thing that we see. But the collars themselves do last for a very long time. Okay.
Okay.
You will find some on Amazon and stuff that are cheaper. Trust me, you don't want them. Okay.
Okay.
Um, you don't need to have the collar for the program, but you'll definitely want to have it when you're going to do your pickup,
Yeah.
or when you're going to do your follow-ups, because then you have to have your collar to, of course, practice and transfer what he's learned over to you.
Okay.
What we've begun doing is, let's say, for example, you did a 2-week board and train, is the first week we record the first session of everything that we teach. Okay. So, and we make a video of it. It's about an hour to hour and a half. So the sit, the stay, the down, the come, the place, the heel. You're going to see us train him, but we're also explaining it. So it's as if we were training you, right? So
Mhm.
you understand what's going on and you can understand the concepts of how e-collar works. Once that's done, we send that video to you and then you watch it. And whenever you schedule your follow-up, you already come in with knowledge. Okay. And then we just kind of help you close any gaps on things that you may have not understood fully. And then we do, the second week. And at the end of the second week, we have what we call the overview video, which shows you kind of like the progress point from, so the first video is like the first thing, the first kind of, it's introduction to the collar. And at the end of the second week, you see how far your dog has progressed, right? And then you watch that. And of course, you can do another follow-up for the pickup. And then you can say like, I'm having trouble, understanding this concept. And I work with you on it, or one of the trainers works with you on it. And then you get so many follow-ups depending on the program that you purchase. So like, let's say some people, what they'll do is they won't do any transfer lessons. They'll watch the videos and then they pick up their dog and they'll go for like a couple of weeks or a month and they'll practice and like do everything based off the videos. Okay. And then they'll come back like a month later and they'll say like, hey, we're struggling with this. And then we help them with that. And then they'll go off and they'll, spend another 2 weeks practicing that. And then they might say, hey, we're all happy. Like, we don't need any more follow-ups. The classes don't expire. Okay. But they have them there. So like if in a year from now, something happens, maybe it's something different, something new, like a new behavior, like you started barking at dogs or something, you can absolutely use one of the follow-ups with us to address that problem. Okay. So you'll have a wealth of knowledge from the videos themselves. And then of course, with the follow-up lessons, that's where we work one-on-one with each other. And we help kind of close the gap on anything that you may not be understanding fully.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
So for the follow-up lessons, that would be like me going to the facility with him, and like what exactly is a follow-up lesson? Like what is
Sure. So like, let's say, you do the 2 weeks, like the board and train, right? Is after a weekend, you would come to us to check up on them and to do a lesson so that we can start transferring things to you. Okay. And then at the end of the program, you would schedule a pickup, and that lesson tends to be 2 hours. And we go over everything. Okay. And then you leave and you can either schedule your follow-up for the next week, or if you want to wait and practice and apply everything and then come back, you can do that as well. Most people with the weather have like 98% of my clientele is just coming to me at the facility right now.
Okay.
But like, let's say the spring comes, or like the summertime, we train at Oz Park. Okay. Because it's a very busy, distracting environment. There's off-leash dogs, there's people, there's skateboarders, rollerbladers, people playing tennis, people playing baseball. So you can even do your follow-up at Oz Park.
Okay.
So that you're in a more kind of realistic, distracting environment. So like if you did the board and train or daycare and train now, right during the winter time, and then you just waited to schedule your follow-ups for the spring or summer, like that would be fine too. There's no like exact way you have to do it, because you get the videos, you're gonna have something to reference to.
Okay. All right. So like when do you think that you would start doing the Oz Park? Maybe in the summer or like in the spring?
Yeah, so we had somebody ask that, and I told Maria to just tell them whatever the official date is for spring is when we'd start the Oz, because like right now the weather was nice yesterday and today, right?
Yeah.
But this is Chicago, and like in 5 days it can be cold again.
Yeah.
Is we're just gonna push to the spring. The only thing is obviously it's gonna be raining. So like last year when we were training in the spring, if it rained, we just told people if it's raining, we just meet at my facility.
Okay.
Because I'm so busy that I'll get pushed back. And then if you try to push it back and the spot's not available, you might be waiting, 2 weeks or so before you can get another spot with me to train, And if that doesn't bother you, then like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I don't want to get pushed back, then we just meet at my facility. We try to work outside, but if the weather is just not working out, then we just go to my facility.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
So it just comes down to length of time. And again, if you want to be able to have, Gnocchi at the end of the day, daycare and train is kind of more of the option. You just have to, drop them off and pick them up. Ideally, drop them off earlier and then pick them up later so that we have plenty of time to work with them throughout that day. Um, if you don't mind being without him, for a couple of weeks or whatever that time frame is, board and train, he'll be able to do a lot more because we have him also for those extra 2 days, Saturdays and
Mhm.
Sundays. And of course, you're welcome to come in, just visit him to see how he's doing. Like, don't have a problem with that. Um, and then you get more follow up with that as well in terms of the lessons and stuff. So it's really just personal preference.
Okay.
And then if you want to push it back to like when he's 6 months, the minimum would be like 2 weeks. But just think of 2 weeks or 10 days daycare and train as like kind of a 50 to 60% off leash reliability. The 15-day daycare and train or the 3 week is like the 60 to 70% of off leash reliability. And then the 4 week program or 20-day daycare and train is like 90%, like as close to 100% as we can get. But you're still going to have to do some work. Okay. And then Maria will follow up with you, and then you can just let her know what your preference is and what you want to do.
Okay.
If you want to book a daycare and train or a board and train, we only take 4 dogs at a time. So we have 2 daycare, we have 2 board and trains right now. We have a daycare and train coming on Monday. We have another board and train that's supposed to come this Sunday. So if once you figure out what you want to do, my suggestion is you start locking in your dates so that you don't, if you come back and then all the slots are full, you'll have to wait a little longer.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Awesome. So if you have any other questions, you just let us know. Otherwise, Maria will get in contact with you, and then she'll help you answer any questions that you may have forgotten to ask. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.